Welcome to the banks of the mighty Ohio River. Go ahead and take a deep, slow breath of the river air. We are starting our walking tour right here at BB Riverboats on Riverboat Row, located on the absolute northern edge of Newport, Kentucky. Before we take our first steps along the pavement, I want you to step right up to the railing, look out across the dark, moving water, and take in the sheer scale of the landscape in front of you. You are looking at the massive, towering, modern glass skyline of Cincinnati, Ohio. But you are standing in the American South. The Ohio River flowing right in front of you is not just a geographical boundary, it is a massive, historic, and cultural dividing line. For centuries, this rushing water separated the industrial North from the agricultural South, and it served as the great aquatic highway of the American frontier. Look at the massive sternwheelers docked right here at the riverbank. The Belle of Cincinnati and the River Queen are beautiful, massive reminders of the golden age of the American steamboat. In the 1800s, this river was not this quiet. It was absolutely choked with thousands of wooden steamboats, flatboats, and keelboats, carrying Appalachian timber, coal, whiskey, and desperate pioneers westward into the unknown. The river was incredibly dangerous back then, completely untamed, and filled with massive, hidden, submerged trees called snags that could violently tear the hull out of a wooden boat in a matter of seconds, sending cargo and passengers straight to the bottom. The fact that beautifully maintained riverboats still operate right here today, their massive red paddle wheels churning the water, keeps that deep, romantic 19th century history completely alive and visible. Let us begin our walk. We are going to head northeast right along the paved path of Riverboat Row, keeping the flowing river on our left. We have just under a mile of ground to cover today, taking a beautiful, highly historical loop up into the city grid and back down to the water. We are going to walk at a nice, easy, deliberate pace. As we walk this first stretch of pavement along the water, I want you to think about the absolute, terrifying, uncontrollable power of the river beside you. Today, it looks calm, peaceful, and highly managed by a complex series of modern locks and dams constructed by the Army Corps of Engineers. But this river is wild. In January of 1937, the Ohio River Valley experienced a catastrophic, unprecedented weather event. It rained constantly, freezing, relentless rain, for weeks. The river began to rise, and it simply did not stop. The water crested at roughly 80 feet, which is nearly 30 feet above major flood stage. If you had been standing exactly where you are right now in late January of 1937, you would have been standing deep underwater. The dark, freezing floodwaters completely swallowed the city of Newport. The river poured into the streets, destroying historic homes, wiping out generations of family businesses, and leaving thousands of people stranded in their attics in freezing temperatures, waiting desperately for rescue boats. That single natural disaster fundamentally altered the psychology and the architecture of this city forever, and we will talk about exactly how they survived it and fought back against the river a little later on our walk. Keep walking along Riverboat Row. You are going to take a slight right to stay on the path, and look straight ahead. You will see a set of concrete stairs leading up toward the massive, heavy steel bridge structure above us. Go ahead and turn left, and let us take those stairs. Take your time climbing. As you walk up these concrete steps, you are physically ascending from the historic, low-lying riverbank directly up to the modern street level of United States Route 27 South, which comes pouring right off the Taylor Southgate Bridge. Once you reach the top of the stairs, catch your breath and turn right onto the sidewalk. You are now standing on York Street. The massive bridge directly behind you carries thousands of cars and commuters every single day across the state line between Kentucky and Ohio. But we are turning our backs to the bridge and the Cincinnati skyline, heading southeast, straight into the historic heart of Newport. As you start walking down York Street, passing by the address of 300 US 27, I want you to look closely at the architecture surrounding you. You will see a fascinating mix of modern commercial developments and incredibly old, beautiful, heavily weathered historic brick buildings. The brickwork here was largely laid in the mid to late 1800s by a massive wave of German immigrants who settled in this specific area. They brought their incredible craftsmanship, their culture, and their massive, sprawling brewing traditions to the Kentucky side of the river. But I want to tell you a story about Newport that goes far beyond the brickwork. It is a story you will not find on a standard, glossy tourist brochure. You are walking into a town that was once famously, notoriously known across the entire country as Sin City. Long before Las Vegas was a glowing neon oasis in the Nevada desert, Newport, Kentucky, was the absolute premier gambling and vice destination of the United States. During the Prohibition era of the 1920s, when the federal government outlawed alcohol, the local authorities here simply decided to look the other way. Massive illicit breweries continued to pump out beer, speakeasies operated on every corner, and underground casinos absolutely flourished. But it was in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s that Newport truly became a massive, highly organized empire of organized crime. Massive, ruthless crime syndicates from Cleveland, Chicago, and New York moved in, bought up the real estate, and completely took over the town. The infamous Cleveland Syndicate, led by men like Mo Dalitz, effectively became the shadow government of Newport. Keep walking straight ahead on York Street. We are approaching a modern traffic circle. Go ahead and navigate straight through it, staying on York Street. As you walk this block, passing by the quiet brick facades, I want you to close your eyes for a second and imagine this exact street in 1950. It was not quiet. It was completely lined with massive, opulent, highly illegal casinos and nightclubs like the Flamingo, the Tropicana, and the legendary Beverly Hills Club just outside of town. They had bright, towering neon signs flashing through the night sky. The streets were packed bumper to bumper with luxury Cadillacs and Lincolns. Huge, iconic Hollywood celebrities like Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., and Marilyn Monroe would frequently cross the river from their respectable hotels in Cincinnati to perform in the loud, smoky Newport nightclubs and gamble massive amounts of money at the craps tables. The mobsters ran absolutely everything. They bought off the local police force, the judges, the mayor, and the politicians with briefcases full of untraceable cash. Brothels operated openly without fear of raids, and illegal slot machines were literally running in the back rooms of the local pharmacies, barbershops, and grocery stores. Newport was an open, roaring, highly corrupt town where absolutely anything was legal and available, as long as the syndicate got their cut of the profits. We are walking past Smiles on York at 335 York Street now. Look at how incredibly quiet, clean, and respectable this street feels today. The contrast between the violent, neon-soaked, dangerous mob history and the peaceful, modern reality of this city is absolutely staggering. Prepare for our next turn. We are coming up on East 4th Street. Go ahead and turn left here onto 4th Street. We are only going to walk down this specific block for a couple of minutes, heading toward Monmouth Street. As you walk down 4th, enjoy the historic charm of the residential and commercial buildings. Notice the intricate details around the windows and the heavy stone cornices. Listen closely for a second. If you hear the deep, heavy blast of a locomotive horn echoing off the hills, or the rhythmic, grinding metal of a massive freight train hauling coal and steel across one of the river bridges, you are hearing the actual industrial heartbeat of this valley. This entire region was built on the backs of the railroads and the riverboats, moving the heavy resources of the Appalachian Mountains to the rest of the world. We are approaching the intersection of 4th and Monmouth Street. Look for Mad Mike's Burgers and Fries right on the corner at 342 Monmouth. Go ahead and make a left turn onto Monmouth Street. Monmouth Street is the absolute historic commercial spine of Newport. For over a century, this has been the main street where locals came to buy their groceries, get their hair cut, eat, and socialize. As you walk north on Monmouth, heading back toward the direction of the river, look at the storefronts. Today, you will see a fantastic, highly eclectic mix of independent businesses, crowded antique shops, local restaurants, and bakeries. It has a wonderful, highly walkable, small-town charm. But let us get back to the story of the mob, because you might be wondering how a town completely, absolutely controlled by ruthless organized crime syndicates turned into the peaceful, family-friendly street you are walking down right now. How did they get rid of the mob? The answer involves a massive political scandal, a former professional football player, and a cup of heavily drugged whiskey. In the late 1950s and early 1960s, a group of brave local citizens and religious leaders finally decided they had had enough of the corruption, the violence, the open prostitution, and the national embarrassment. They formed a grassroots group called the Committee of 500, and they began a highly dangerous, extremely unpopular campaign to shut down the casinos and kick the mob out of Newport for good. But they needed a candidate for county sheriff who could not be bought, bribed, or intimidated. They found a man named George Ratterman. Ratterman was a former star quarterback for the Cleveland Browns, a highly respected local businessman, and a devout father of 10 children. He possessed a squeaky clean reputation. He announced he was running for sheriff on a strict, uncompromising platform to completely clean up the town and enforce the law. The mob panicked. They knew Ratterman was serious, and they knew he could not be bought with cash. So they decided to completely, publicly destroy his reputation. In the spring of 1961, a group of mobsters invited Ratterman to a meeting at a local restaurant, supposedly to discuss political support. While he was distracted, they secretly slipped a massive dose of chloral hydrate, commonly known as knockout drops, into his drink. Ratterman drank it and quickly passed out cold. The mobsters then dragged his unconscious body to a hotel room above the notorious Tropicana Club. They stripped him down to his underwear and put him in bed with a local burlesque dancer named April Flowers. The mobsters then immediately tipped off the corrupt local police force. The police rushed into the room, discovered the scene, arrested the highly disoriented and unconscious Ratterman, and paraded him in front of the local press, claiming the great reform candidate was a hypocrite caught in a brothel. But the mob made a massive, fatal miscalculation. They gave him too much of the drug. A blood test by a toxicologist proved without a shadow of a doubt that Ratterman had been heavily poisoned. The entire frame job unraveled in a highly publicized, spectacular trial that played out like a Hollywood movie. The national media descended on Newport in droves, exposing the deep, violent corruption of the city to the entire country. The public was absolutely outraged. The federal government, under the aggressive direction of Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy, stepped in to help dismantle the syndicate. The citizens of Newport, furious at the attempted frame-up, rallied behind George Ratterman, and in the next election, they swept him into the sheriff's office in a massive, historic landslide. True to his word, Sheriff Ratterman, heavily backed by state police and federal agents, raided the casinos, physically smashed the slot machines with sledgehammers, padlocked the nightclubs, and completely drove the mob out of town forever. We are coming up on 3rd Street now. Go ahead and make a left turn onto 3rd Street. The incredible, cinematic story of George Ratterman happened right in these very streets you are walking through. As we walk southwest on 3rd Street, the landscape to your right completely changes. You are walking right past the massive, modern, multi-level complex known as Newport on the Levee. After the casinos were forcefully shut down in the 60s, Newport went through a very dark, incredibly difficult economic depression. The massive, illicit wealth of the syndicate was gone overnight, the local factories began to close, and the storefronts on Monmouth Street began to sit empty and board up. The city desperately needed a new identity and a new economic engine. In 2001, the city opened Newport on the Levee. It was a massive, brilliant, highly expensive gamble to revitalize the riverfront. Look at the towering structure to your right. They built a massive open-air entertainment district featuring a massive movie theater, high-end restaurants, boutique shops, and the world-class Newport Aquarium. It completely transformed Newport from a decaying, post-mob ghost town into the premier family entertainment destination of the entire Cincinnati metropolitan region. But I want you to notice exactly where the levee is actually built. Look at the massive earthen and concrete mounds surrounding it. Remember the horrific, devastating flood of 1937 that we talked about at the beginning of the walk? To make sure a disaster of that magnitude never happened again, the Army Corps of Engineers built a massive, multi-mile concrete and earth flood wall around the entire city of Newport. The levee complex is brilliantly designed to integrate directly into that flood wall. It uses the massive concrete barrier as part of its architectural foundation, allowing visitors to walk right over the top of the flood defenses to see the river. It is a perfect, ingenious example of a city turning a defensive, ugly concrete wall into a massive economic engine and a public gathering space. We are approaching a traffic circle on 3rd Street. Go ahead and continue straight through it, transitioning smoothly onto West 3rd Street. We are walking toward the historic legal heart of the city now. As we stay on West 3rd, you will need to take a very slight left to stay on the main sidewalk. We are approaching 10 Court Street. The street names here, Court Street and Columbia Street, indicate exactly what this specific grid was historically used for. You are walking past the historic location of the Campbell County Courthouse. This was the exact building where the massive, highly publicized trials of the 1960s took place. This was where the corrupt police officers were indicted, where the mobsters were finally held legally accountable, and where the citizens of this town bravely took their city back from the Cleveland Syndicate. The heavy, imposing brick architecture of these legal buildings stands as a quiet, enduring monument to the rule of law overcoming absolute corruption. We are going to head north on West 3rd Street for just a few feet, and then take a quick left to stay on West 3rd. We are walking toward the river now. Go ahead and make a right turn onto Columbia Street. As we walk down Columbia Street, you can feel the elevation beneath your feet beginning to drop slightly. We are heading back down toward the river level. The modern, bustling city is behind us, and the open, massive expanse of the Ohio River Valley is opening up in front of us once again. Take a moment to enjoy the quiet of this street. The contrast between the roaring, neon-soaked, dangerous history of this town and the peaceful, highly developed reality of the modern riverfront is profound. Newport is a city that has survived massive, devastating floods that swallowed its homes. It completely reinvented its economy after the total collapse of heavy industry, and it fought a literal, highly dangerous war against some of the most powerful organized crime figures in American history. And yet, it survived. It adapted. It thrived. Prepare for our final turn. We are at the bottom of the street. Go ahead and turn left onto Riverboat Row. You are now walking the final stretch of our tour, heading right back to where we started. The massive, beautiful Ohio River is right in front of you once again, flowing exactly as it has for thousands of years. If you are doing this walk in the late afternoon or evening, the sun might be starting to set over the hills to the west, casting a brilliant, golden light across the water and reflecting off the towering glass skyscrapers of the Cincinnati skyline across the river.